Following on from a question from one of my Patreons recently who asked, does painting tiles actually work? I had to admit, the answer is, I have no idea. I've never painted tiles, although I have actually done quite a lot of tiling. So not to be outdone, I bought some bathroom tile paint. So today I can answer the question, does it actually work? Does it work? There's no actually in there. This is bathroom tile paint, which has been designed to be able to be painted directly onto your tiles in your bathroom and keep up with all the splashes of water and humidity and everything like that. It actually comes as a two-parter, so you've actually got an activator that you put in there, mix up, and then you've got 5 days to use it before basically it doesn't work anymore. Now, this is a water-based paint, and the only reason I know that is it says to clean up your brushes afterwards, wash them out in water. Having said that, there's some pretty nasty chemicals in it, so you wouldn't really want that splashed in your eye. So it'd be interesting to see what it sort of actually feels like to use once that is mixed. I bought this from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below so you can have a look at this. There's various different companies making the same sort of thing, and they've all got like a two-part system, so I assume that is the way to go. Now, I'm not going to trial this on my own bathroom because it doesn't need a refurbishment. So the first thing I need to do before I mix this or do anything is to make a panel, like a sample panel, that I can paint, trial and abuse. So I'm going to use some spare tiles and cement backer board to make this sample panel that I can trial this paint on. The adhesive I'm using is quick set-in powder type, which means I can grout the panel soon after fixing the tiles, which I'm tiling in the same way as I would any standard wall. The next day everything has gone off, which means I can paint the tiles. Oh, nice blue. The instructions say the two parts of this paint need to be mixed really well, so I make a DIY mixer from some rod that's kicking around the workshop that actually fits the paint pot. The instructions also stress the requirement to start with an absolutely clean surface, both the tiles and the grout, which is really easy for me because everything is new and clean already, but I would question how well the average DIYer would clean a bathroom or shower cubicle before applying something like this. And I would think the success of this paint adhering to the tiles for years is very dependent on surface preparation. The next drawback is that with tile paint, you generally paint both the tiles and the grout. I suppose you could try to avoid the grout and just paint all around the tiles, but that would take you hours and hours for just a small area. So you're really forced to paint the whole thing. So you end up with something that you don't normally see, which is both tiles and grout of exactly the same colour, which I think looks a bit weird. Having said that, the paint isn't sticky in any way and goes on really easily, and the very last thing I do is roller it off so there's no streaks or thick areas of paint left. I found this definitely needs 2 coats, the second of which I did off camera the next day, but I made my life easier by wrapping up the paint and the roller in a plastic bag. But all in all, I found this paint really easy to work with, and the end result was a uniform and slightly textured surface, which was easy to achieve. The paint is all dry, but it would be because what you just saw was over a month ago now. So in the last month, to try to put this through its paces and get it sort of weathered just like a proper tile paint would be if you had it in the bathroom, I've actually had this for the last month in my shower. Standing upright, right in the middle of the shower, to sort of replicate what it would be like if you painted the tiles in your shower. So it's been bombarded every day with normal shower type use and detergents and shampoo and all of that, just like the tiles in the rest of my shower. Although I don't think my wife was too happy about having it in the shower all that time. And I do keep telling her she should shave her legs, but as you can see, she just ignores me. So after all that time of being in the shower, has it actually made any difference? And actually looking at this, very, very quickly, I can say, no. It looks actually very similar to the day I painted it a month ago. It's not worn in any way. The board behind it is a little bit darker than it was, but the actual paint does look as new as the day I painted it. So I think I can confirm that for day-to-day use, this tile paint stands up pretty well to standard water and detergent and shampoo and everything you're going to get around a bath and a shower. It looks almost the same as it did a month ago. So I think as long as there's no mechanical damage, this will last many years. But we have to clean it. So this is where we look to the next part of this test, which is putting a bit more mechanical damage onto it. Starting with something like this sponge, which my wife would use to clean the tiles. So let's see if something like this has any effect on the paint. I'm just using water here and trying to put in the same amount of force I would expect to use on a shower that hadn't been cleaned for a bit. As I'm doing this, I can immediately see the sheen on the paint being taken off by the scouring pad. So on the top tile, I just worked in one area just for a few seconds to get a comparison. So that's very interesting. I can actually start seeing the shine that we had on there, the gloss, actually starting to go. I think you can see there that this one that I haven't touched is still really shiny. This one, which I didn't do much damage with this, really, it's only a decent clean, has now gone very matte. You can see a complete difference between these two. And up here, I just did this section here. You can see very, very clearly that this has actually damaged the surface of the paint. And it's just now a different colour. It's reflecting in a different way. So that's interesting. That didn't take very long to start losing that shine. And even here, you can that stripe there, you can see very, very clearly. So as soon as you start using something mechanical or that's got some sort of texture on it, then you're going to lose that shine. But is that too much? Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. I think if you've got quite a dirty shower, for instance, and you put some cleaner on, I'd expect to use that on tiles without worrying too much I'm going to take the surface off. So definitely once you've got tile paint, you can see it starts to take the shine off. Probably okay if you did the whole thing, but it's never going to quite look as sparkly as it did on day one. On the next row of these tiles, I did try a sander and immediately realised that there's no point in doing this because realistically, no paint is ever going to stand up to a sander. So this little bit of experiment proves absolutely nothing. But what else happens in the bathroom? You drop bottles of shampoo and shower gel. So maybe the one thing that this should stand up to is having some sort of physical damage with plastic. So I've got an old bottle of glue here that's seen better days, but it is the same type of bottle and the same type of material that you'd expect to see in a shower or bath. So let's see if we drop this on these tiles, if it causes any damage. Now I can see some marks on there, but whether they clean up or not, let's just use the soft side of this. Yeah, they're not sort of permanent. So surprisingly, mechanical damage from a plastic bottle, and this lid is pretty hard, it stands up to pretty well. And that is probably more realistic of the sort of damage you get in a shower or a bathroom. So I'm impressed with that. One thing I've just looked at is that when I mixed this paint a month ago, I actually left some in the bottom of this little tub just to see what it would turn into. And I've just pulled it out. And this is what I've ended up with. And it's sort of ended up as like a rubber. This is the sort of thing that you'd probably make into like a rubber bouncing ball. So I can only assume that that's what the additive does, is it binds it all together and it makes it into like a flexible type material. Right, so the last thing I'm going to look at is chemical damage, something that you wouldn't normally expect. So I'm basically going to find all the nasty chemicals I've got in my workshop and just try it on these last few tiles. As the acetone has a tendency to evaporate really quickly, I soaked a paper towel with it just to keep the surface wetter for longer. 10 minutes later and everything has dried up. And although the white spirit had no effect on the paint, the acetone definitely did. It definitely doesn't like pure acetone. So it looks like acetone takes the surface off. So let's just summarise and answer the question that we asked right at the beginning, which is, does it work? Well, what I would say is, although it's reasonably hard wearing, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't expect any paint to stand up to a sander like this. The fact that it dulls down and it takes the surface off with just a little bit of abrasive, like a pad like this, is concerning. And that means in time, it's not going to look nearly as good as it did on day one. And there's another two drawbacks. Firstly, when you paint an area of tile like this, by definition, you also paint the grout lines. That means that the grout is now exactly the same colour as the tile, which you never see. So this doesn't really look like standard tile work because you don't normally see tiles and grout of exactly the same colour. Also, I started with a new set of tiles here, and this paint has adhered to them really, really well. However, if you have to clean a bathroom to paint it, I do worry about how good that cleaning is. If that cleaning of those tiles isn't absolutely 100%, then painting onto something that's a little bit dirty, a little bit greasy, or has got maybe a little bit of mould in the grout, I don't think is going to adhere nearly as well as my perfect sample here. So in conclusion, tile paint, does it work? Well, I think I can answer that question in the words of Basil Fawlty, which is, I would only use this in an emergency. You might extend the life of a bathroom by a couple of years by painting the tiles, but it's never going to look like a proper job. So if you're going to be in the property for some time, definitely take the tiles off, do it properly, put up new tiles, grout, the whole lot. It'll look absolutely stunning. If you're going to use tile paint, what concerns me is the initial cleaning. If you don't clean it properly, it's gradually going to come off. And to be honest with you, it's never going to look like a proper job anyway. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will see you next time.